This next step of practice will be filling in with your cross contour lines, so filling in your contour drawings with the lines. I'm going to start with looking at everything I labeled and finding my shadows, and I'm going to follow my lines with that curve of the contour outline. So I'm going to stay within my shadow section here, and I'm going to follow the curve. And if it helps, you can go down and kind of outline light guidelines first before going in with the lines closer together. Something that helps as well is finding where the center of your shape is. If it's something like this apple for your reference picture, where the direction of the line is going to flip about halfway through. So in the middle, the direction of these lines is going to be different on the left versus the right side. So if you draw a line going down the middle of the apple or a little circle like I did here, you can see where the lines are going to start curving towards the right, and that's going to keep it looking more three-dimensional. If you keep it curved the same way all the way throughout, it will flatten areas of your apple or your curved image, whatever you're working with. I'm continuing to keep those lines nice and close together in the shadow area, following that curve of the bottom shape of the apple here. And then next, after the shadow area, we're going to be moving into the highlight, but there are a couple other little shadow sections that I'm going to jump to first. So look at your reference picture, try to fill in all of those shadow areas first, keeping those lines nice and close together and following the contour of your shape. If it's something flat, like the stem here, make sure that your lines are flat. And then for the curve of the stem, to make that look three-dimensional, I'm following the curve of that little circle that's on the very top of the stem here. Then I'm going and I saw a little shadow area here that I filled in. And then move on next to either your highlight or your medium tone. So I'm working on putting these guidelines in here just so I can kind of follow those as I'm filling in these medium sections, because it does jump around a little bit. So that helps. Now in the medium tone sections, I'm spacing my lines further apart. Again, where that center line of the apple is, I am flipping the direction of my lines to keep it looking three-dimensional. Now I'm putting little guidelines in for the lines that are going the opposite direction, and then going back in and filling the rest of my medium tone sections with the lines going the opposite way. If you're someone who wants to take things a little bit further, you can continue those lines and create more of a transition or more of a gradient between your medium tones and shadows. So then you have more of a range of values. So not just a dark, medium, and light, but you have that range of medium tones in between. So feel free to take it a little bit further, play around with how you are outlining. This is all practice before your final project. So really focus on playing around with what works best for you, whether you're following these sections exactly how they are, or you're creating more of those medium tones and more of a gradient in between. For the eraser, as I'm adding my cross contour lines, I drew a line to divide it in half, because just like the apple, the lines are going to be flipping direction in the center. So on the top of the eraser here in the shadow, my lines are switching direction as I get to that center line. They're kind of fanning out from the center line. Same with the bottom part here of the eraser. I'm working in the shadow area first, filling that in with my vertical lines, as the outside lines here are straight and flat. And then I'm going to go across with my curved lines, which is going to create the dimension and form of my eraser. So I'm keeping those lines nice and close together, and then pressing a little bit harder in these shadow areas. Here is that center line that I drew, like I said, and my lines in the top section are going to fan out from that center line. I'm keeping in mind where that highlight is so that my lines are not accidentally going through my highlight section. So they're fanning out from that point and changing direction at the center line. And then as I continue, I am drawing my lines going across the opposite way in this shadow area. once the shadow area is done, I'll move on to my medium tone and then my highlight. When you are finished with this, if you would like to outline in either a thin Sharpie or a pen, that will help for the next step, which is adding color. If you want to use paint or watercolor, you'll especially want those outlines so that the paint is not smudging your lines. However, since this is just practice, you can leave it in pencil. That's okay, as long as you're not using watercolor as your choice of adding color. You could also use colored pencil or a different material where those lines are still going to show up through whatever you're using to apply your color. So here I am going back onto the apple with my pen. This is where you can get maybe a little bit more creative with the spacing and the blending of your line as well. So as I'm going over top of this, maybe in the shadow area, I'll draw my lines even closer together, or starting to extend some into the medium toned areas, but keep those still spaced out a bit. And then I'm going across the opposite direction with my pen here as well. So this will help when I go to add watercolor on top for it not to get blended or faded together.